Attention all passengers, we are now boarding for Rings of Power, Episode 1. Thomas, anything to say to the passengers today?
Welcome aboard. First stop, Middle Earth.
We have just watched the pilot episode to Rings of Power. We've got... Yeah, I like to do that with my hand. What we're going to do is talk about the pros and cons of what we saw in this first episode. So that way you don't have to go watch it.
Yeah, because maybe you don't care at all. But we're going to tell you why. You should. Or
care.
should not.
Or not. There's been so much chatter, as I like to call it. There's been so much chatter online about, is Amazon going to completely blow it? Is it going to be a copy-paste of Peter Jackson's movies? Is it going to be Sesame Street for adults?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if anyone actually said that. Overall, this is a show that definitely has some fan service, but also is really welcoming to people who don't really know anything about the universe. They give you some good backstory for those who are familiar with the Elves and Valinor and Sauron, things like that. But they also start to sort of introduce some new places that we've never really seen before on screen.
I've actually was surprised with the first episode. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't unbelievable. But like especially there was one fight scene that happened pretty early on.
Oh my gosh. They kind of used a kung fu move where Galadriel runs and jumps off of a sword.
But like they
and then
throw her with the sword.
Yeah, they launch her. She kind of hovers in the air like Jackie Chan for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And then just single-handedly takes out a troll.
Yeah, a snow troll. It just was kind of like, oh, okay.
Oh. Superhero.
Cool. Yeah. All right.
We both just laughed in the moment because it was kind of outrageous.
Yeah.
It honestly reminded me of the Hobbit movie trilogy and some of the sort of ridiculous, wacky kind of action that's in there.
The dwarfs just like could not be hurt at all.
Yeah.
But they could just be thrown like over a mountain and not take any damage whatsoever.
Is that what those kids are into these days?
Slinging women.
They pronounced Galadriel's name about 5 different ways.
Yeah, it's like
Galadriel.
And Galadriel. And then Galadriel.
And then Galugala.
God, I hope not.
There's a lot of emphasis on Galadriel in this episode. So if you hate strong female characters, this is not the show for you. She's like an action hero. She's also like strong-willed. She bosses those boys around, you know?
Yeah.
Galadriel's a person.
Yeah. Rings of Power did in the early stages of production. They hired an intimacy coordinator from Game of Thrones, which Lord of the Rings fans were not happy about because there's really no sex at all in the stories. And some people think that it's for like a possible scene of showing what happened, like how orcs were created.
It's probably just going to be that couple of Bronwyn and
Arondir.
Yeah. I think they were alluding to it in this episode.
Yeah, they did a little finger touch.
They did. Oh man, that's where it starts.
Yeah, it was right when that meteor.
They brought the advisor in just for that scene, just for the painting touches.
Oh yes, thank you for your help.
Yeah,
you've been a tremendous.
Thank you. Great work.
Yes. I love what you did with the painting.
Dude, the pinky touch.
Oh my gosh, that was my favorite part of episode.
The fans are gonna love it. One thing that is clear in this first episode: $200 million on this first season.
Yes.
And I could tell that the money was well spent. Every location that we were at, every set, I mean, it was just jam-packed full of insane props, landscapes, like the architecture that was built for the sets. Even just like the imagery, like the CGI is very what's the right word? It's like ethereal. Like it's very dreamlike. The animation and the way that the elves are portrayed here. Every scene that involved the elves and their like home, it was almost like a painting. Like it was very beautiful scenery, which I mean it's all computer generated, but you can just tell. You can tell where the money went. And I don't know if that impacts really like a good or bad impact of how you're gonna experience the show, but it's very clear how much money was thrown into this project.
Tolkien loved elves above pretty much any other race in Middle Earth, so I mean just seeing like the beauty of them taking certain things like the details of the trees and like their outfits, or something as detailed as a dagger, of little history pieces in that I liked. And so the scaling just felt nice for me, just as a fan, and noticing those little details.
At the end of the episode, there's kind of this dramatic entrance of a new character. We don't know exactly who it is. There's kind of some cliffhanger spectacle moments. So I'm sure the theories are going to be flying around for this episode. My initial thought was it was Gandalf. I think that'd be a really sick entrance for him to come flying in out of the sky.
Honestly,
Tell me how you feel.
I'm a little frustrated because it's confusing, but again, they said that they want to remain as true as possible while adapting it entirely, which doesn't make much sense. But if you're going to watch it as an adaptation, even some of the posters they've had, it's like, oh, this looks like Gandalf's hands. But if you look at the timeline, it would most likely be a different wizard, because there's 5 wizards in Middle Earth, but it's probably Gandalf.
There was a point in the middle of the episode where it kind of reached this like lull period. Things really started to slow down. Yeah. And I think it's all for the sake of character development, world development, which is fine. I liked those sort of things. For the pilot, it felt maybe a little too slow. I think that for the pilot episode of a show, you really need to keep people engaged, like from start to finish. The development episode can come second. It can come third.
It was almost as if they felt like they had to bounce. It's like there's too much story to tell. Yeah. So it's like running by a person's window almost, and being like, oh, they're having dinner, let me run to the next person. Oh, he's holding a girl's hand, oh, let me run to the next person. Oh my god, a meteor hit. And then you turn around and there's a midget.
And that's the pilot, everybody.
Yeah, that's it.
So if you like that sort of roller coaster ride that takes an hour to develop, this is a good pilot for you. If you don't like that, if you want your pilot episode for your show to be like a Mr. Beast video where it's just foot on the gas
the whole time, this ain't for you, boo. But even if you like going the speed limit, this may be a struggle. They've added quite a bit of new characters, but if you're watching and you're like a devout Tolkien fan, I think if you change your mindset into that this might be a very big adaptation, and give it a chance into not necessarily being a prerequisite to Lord of the Rings, even though that is something that they've advertised, but rather that it's a fantasy adventure, you might like it a little more. I think that I was actually somewhat surprised at it. I thought it was going to be terrible right from the get-go, but I liked it. I didn't absolutely love it, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to stop watching it. I would like to still see where the story leads us, because they've actually alluded to some pretty big things. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
Well, you don't know yet, but you should watch it and find out.
Well, it's always great to have my nerd friend Thomas around.
Always glad to be over.
And his informational textbooks. Gosh.
Yes.
What a nerd.
All right. Ish kakui I durugnul.
Peace.
Later.